Right now, though, we're very privileged to meet somebody new in our community who has taken over our food bank of South Central Michigan. His name is Peter Vogel. Mr. Vogel, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you, Tim.
Very nice to meet you.
You
You arrived. You brought some cold air with you.
I suppose that's the case. My first week here was the week of the polar vortex, so it was sort of a nice welcome to Michigan, I guess.
Well, and you came from Nevada, right?
I did. I came from Reno, but I have lived most of my life in Nebraska, so the weather wasn't such a big shock.
So you're a Cornhusker at heart.
Yeah, and you're Michigan State Spartans kind of clobbered us in basketball last night.
Yeah, well, Nebraska's never been a big basketball school, but
No.
they've had their football teams, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And they have their corn.
Okay.
And it's kind of flat if you drive through there.
Yeah.
So when you came to Michigan, did you actually drive through Nebraska or did you just fly?
I actually drove through Iowa, and maybe I did bring it with me because I remember the morning I left Iowa, it was like 15 below out there. So maybe I did kind of pull it along. I apologize if that's the case.
That's all right. But you have spent, the past decade, almost a decade, working in Reno.
Right.
Well, tell us what you did out there.
Yeah, so I've spent really my whole career, Tim, in not-for-profit. The last 9 years, I was the CEO for Catholic Charities of Northern Nevada. So, yeah, we did a whole variety of things. Grew the agency pretty dramatically, kind of took over a small, kind of struggling Catholic Charities that wasn't really well known, and we built it up pretty large. Really provided a lot of services. We ended up providing services in every county in the state except one.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, we were really pleased with what we did.
How do you measure something like that in terms of dollars that the organization has?
Yeah, in terms of growth, I think a lot of ways we measured it in terms of clients that we could help and serve. I mean, that was really sort of the biggest goal we had. But yeah, I took over an agency that had about a $2.1 million budget when I got there. When I left, it was a little more than 15. And we kind of built up cash reserves really nicely. So, I mean, the agency had been around about 75 years. It needed to be around. I mean, the good not-for-profits need to last. They're really valuable to your community. So that was an important part of what we did, too.
Yeah, well, and I think, when they've been around a long time, and our food bank has been around a long, long time.
It's been around a while.
It does great work. It's a huge part of the community. It's a really important thing, but it's easy for that nonprofit to kind of get just kind of swept aside or overlooked or not be real high profile because they're in the trenches doing the work day in and day out.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I mean, that's our reality is we spend so much time just doing the blocking and tackling of, what a not-for-profit needs to do that sometimes we forget to kind of look up and educate people. I think that's sometimes a challenge with the food bank. I think a lot of people in your community here, the best that I can tell, and just going around and chatting with folks is I think people can get confused with what a food bank really is, what's the role of a pantry, how are they different, what do we support, what do we not support. So
yeah. So did you have to do some crash course homework? I imagine that running the food bank is going to be a little different than running the Catholic Charities of Northern Nevada.
It's going to be, but I will say one of the things that we did at Catholic Charities is we really ended up building up the food programs while I was there. We had a dining room that served 600 free meals a day. We ran the largest food pantry in the state that served about 11,000 people. And we actually distributed food to more than 110 different locations statewide. So we sort of functioned like a food bank, although technically we weren't. Actually, we moved almost exactly the same amount of food out of my Catholic Charities as we had last year out of the food bank of South Central Michigan.
So it's not a gigantic change for you. You've already dabbled in a lot of the areas that our food bank is doing. On a pretty good scale.
Yeah, and it's really what we grew. It's kind of made a lot of sense. I mean, food is really sort of that core thing when you're dealing with people that are really struggling or having challenges, right? Food is really, and I'll tell you one of the other things that we really found that I really like about helping those less fortunate with food is that a lot of times when people run into hard times, they start getting in trouble, they're maybe barely living on the edge and someone loses a job or something. when they need help, the first place they tend to go is they go to a pantry. They go to ask for food. And that's one of the things we found at Catholic Charities is we had a lot of other resources. We had a lot of case management, a lot of other things. We could sign them up for SNAP or other benefits, and we can do all of that. But when they came in for food, then we could assess what they really needed. They might not be able to pay their rent and be just about to go homeless. And those are the things we can prevent on the front end. It's a huge advantage. It's a cost savings. It's much easier for the family. It's beneficial all the way around. That's what I think we're really going to try to do with the food bank here. Not to be everything. We're just a player in the cog. But it seems like there are some really great not-for-profits out here in the Battle Creek area and really engaged and really collaborative, which isn't common everywhere I've been. And I'm really looking forward to the food bank jumping in and being a really active partner to that whole process of really helping those that are struggling, or, when you have, sometimes you just have those, a few months where you're really kind of down on your luck. And so we're looking forward to being part of that.
Well, and I read one of the things that you did at Catholic Charities in Northern Nevada was enhance that collaboration effort between nonprofits.
It's probably really how we grew. When I sit back and look at it, I don't think there were really any projects that we took on. I mean, growing an agency from 2 million to 15 million is pretty significant. I can't think of an example of a project or a program that we took on that wasn't collaborative, that we didn't actually do in combination with someone else. In some cases, multiple programs. There was one we even did. We shared a housing program for the less fortunate that was co-owned by the county social services and co-owned by the not-for-profit. And I've not really seen that model replicated anywhere else, but it worked really well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what are some things that, I mean, you've only been here a couple of weeks, really, but what are some things that you think you could bring over from that model and maybe apply here, at least explore?
Well, I think one of the things, Tim, that I'm finding is that this area in Michigan is a lot more collaborative than I really found Reno area to be. And I'm not trying to be critical, just it's more of a compliment to this area. I think that's a huge advantage. So I've got a lot of experience being involved in different leadership groups in the community, and I'd like to get really engaged in that. I think, honestly, I will tell you, one of the things that caught my attention right off the bat, the first week being here with the polar vortex and, weather being terrible and not wanting to get our trucks out on the road because, I didn't want drivers sliding in ditches and things, trying to figure out exactly if we closed, what kind of an impact would that have on other partners, right? I mean, I know there's food pantries out there that may or may not be open. There's shelters that need food and, we need to make sure because they need to feed people. And so it became one of those things where I just figured out we weren't as connected to the community as we needed to be. We needed to really know exactly where those needs were. So if we had to close for a day, but still had to get food out to people, where were those places and how could we make that happen?
Wow.
And we didn't know that well enough yet. And so I just think that I took that as sort of a challenge personally to say we need to rectify that. We need to be much more engaged in this community. And I know we play an important role. Figure out what that is and how we can help others. That's really what we want to do.
One fairly recent collaboration that I've noticed is that with the Firekeepers Casino. In fact, Chef McFarland, I think, is on your board.
Yeah, he's actually our board chair last year and this year.
But it's interesting what they did there. They took an old fire station on Kendall. Have you been over to the fire hub a few times?
I have had lunch over there the other day.
Yeah, and they renovated that. It's a lunch place, but it's also a pantry. It's also a possible meeting place. And they're talking about growing food down on the reservation south of town, and and just kind of tying it all in. I mean, that's a great example of a they're not nonprofit, they're not governmental, they're just a business here in the community that's interwoven pretty closely with a nonprofit like the food bank.
Yeah, I think Firekeepers, just from our perspective, and in the time that I have been here, I think they've been really actively engaged in the community and really want to help the not-for-profits and really want to give back into the community. And they're trying to do a lot of that through the food bank, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and they're just one partner that the food bank has. There's so many, and what do you think of the facility out on Wayne Road?
I think we've got a great little warehouse. I wish we were a little bit more visible. to be really honest with you. I wish we were in a place where it was a little more convenient for folks that wanted to come out and volunteer. In some cases, it's a little bit of a drive. We get a lot of fantastic volunteers, but we can really benefit from more. I'm going to try over the next couple of years to sort of enhance the support we get from volunteers, making sure their experience is really valuable, making sure when people come in and volunteer, they walk away going, I know I made a difference. This was worth coming and doing. And so that's one of our challenges. And I think one of our other challenges maybe is just because where we are, and you know, the Fort's a great place for us to be. It's a warehouse district. We're really a warehouse. But it does hide us just a little bit from sort of people's recognition of, you know, driving by and seeing a sign and being aware of where we are on a regular basis. We're a little hidden from that.
Well, maybe we can help you with that visibility.
That'd be great.
Yeah, well, because we'd like to collaborate as well. Peter Vogel is the new executive director of the Food Bank of South Central Michigan. He's our guest. Most recently, we're in Reno for 9 years there with the Catholic Charities of Northern Nevada. Yeah, I've always wanted to go to Reno. What is that city like?
Reno is quite different than Vegas. I think people think that they're pretty similar. They're actually about an 8-hour drive apart. And it's a lot smaller. Reno's a cute little town. There's casinos. I mean, that's part of the whole environment. But Lake Tahoe is right there. It's really kind of a fun little town to live in. It's much more family-oriented than, say, Las Vegas is. It's pretty different. We still have tourists that come in, but on a much smaller scale than Las Vegas has.
And with that polar vortex, I bet it got down to darn near 55, 60 degrees.
No, it's worse than you think, right? So Lake Tahoe is right there. Sierra Nevadas, we're right on the edge of them, and they've been bombarded with snow this year. They've set records with snow, so we're not the only ones getting hit.
Oh, yeah, because there's some elevation there, isn't there?
Yeah, our house, I think, was actually at 5,000 feet, so yeah, it's not real low.
Mile high. Yeah.
Almost.
The Food Bank of South Central Michigan always has a lot of events coming up. One that we always look forward to is that supermarket sweep, which I think is coming up. Have you seen one of those before?
I haven't. I haven't because honestly, Tim, while I've done a lot of food stuff, I'm new to the actual food bank world, so I'm really looking forward. I've got people coming in from Feeding America. Our liaison is coming in next week. I'm going up to a couple of other food banks, I think next week and the week after that, to really kind of learn what really good high-functioning food banks do and sort of modify it. And honestly, I think we're going to probably really take a good look at some of our events too. And really, the ones that really engage the community, we're going to keep doing. The ones that maybe are a little bit older and stagnant, we're going to try to find something a little bit more interesting to do. I would love to say this, Tim, if it's okay, because I just think from my perspective, this is kind of what I'm finding, right? So, you know, food bank sweet spot historically has always been, well, you know, you've got Kellogg's and we've got Post in our backyard.
Right, yeah.
I mean, wow, you think about running a food bank, you should think Battle Creek would be exactly the place you'd want to come. The challenge we're having is those companies and a lot of others are going to the zero waste philosophy, which is really a good idea, and I fully support it. The problem we have is that waste, that excess that they used to, that was the food bank sweet spot,
that was
right?
Gravy for you
right.
guys,
That was our gravy train for getting in food. And while those companies are getting more and more and more efficient and not wasting food, it's sort of decreasing that volume of food that we used to be able to get for them. So it's making us have to get a little bit more creative and look at things in different ways.
Well, and like I think a newer trend that we're seeing is people growing their own food. Healthy food, and if there's a way to incorporate that into the food bank, I'll tell you right now, I know that I grow more food than I can eat in my own garden, but there are some obstacles with food safety and all of that. But if we could get past that, I think the fact that a lot of people are starting, you know, their own backyard farming, we could have some kind of a share deal if we could get past that.
Yeah, the partnerships are really great, and I think we can. We were making that happen in Reno. The best example I have is the University of Nevada is right there in Reno, and they have a big ag department. And with Catholic Charities, well, Nevada and Reno is really a desert. I mean, our soils are terrible. We get 8 inches of precipitation a year. You can't grow anything. So that became really, really a hindrance to, you know, our pantry and to the dining room we were having. We actually partnered with the university, and we put 8 greenhouses on their their property that they basically sort of managed and ran for us, and we provide some sort of labor to kind of pick it up. But we got all the benefits from that, either for our dining room or for our our food pantry, and to be able to move food, and that was a huge resource. So we'll be looking to try to figure out creative ways to work with gardeners and clubs. The upside here is, and I'm so looking forward to spring and summer with the fruits and the vegetables. I just hear things are just going to be, they're just really delicious and just a wonderful place to, if you really enjoy fresh foods.
Yeah, we certainly are able to do that here, unlike Reno.
Yeah, completely unlike Reno.
Yeah. Well, great. And I'm thinking about events, that are held year after year. It can be like that memo that you put up on the bulletin board at work. It gets invisible after a while.
Yeah.
And so, trying to come up with some new things just to increase the visibility. It sounds like that's part of your mission.
Yeah, to increase in visibility, to make sure people sort of enjoy the things that we're doing. I mean, sometimes if you've done something for 10 years in a row, people love it and they want to come back and they're excited. Sometimes they're just burned out. So we're going to try to differentiate between the two and make participating and supporting your local food bank something that is a fun experience that you really enjoy. You realize you're making a difference in the community and you're kind of having fun at the same time.
Yeah, and I remember a few years ago, they would bring in an artist, Beth Nielsen Chapman, and she did several concerts for the food bank. And there are a lot of celebrities out there who, see the great value of food banks in our communities and maybe would be a good partner for something like that. Those were great for, visibility, and it was a fun thing.
I think the second day I was here, I reached out to Bob Randalls, who was the sort of original executive director of the food bank and had been here for a long time and pretty well established. And so I reached out to him, and he and I went out to lunch, had a great conversation, and got a lot of good insight. And hopefully we'll have a long ongoing relationship. He took off for Arizona because the weather wasn't really conducive to him sticking around here.
Right.
So he's down there for a little while. But he's coming back. And he mentioned the same artist you're talking about, and started getting me thinking about ways that we can bring some of those people in and engage the community.
Great to have you in our community, Peter Vogel.
I appreciate
Food Bank. Nice to meet you. I'm sure we'll have you back soon. Talk about the latest ideas that you come up with.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.